order. So I don't think we need a roll call, do we, Corinne? No. All right, then I'm going to turn it over to Davis and Matt to fill us in on what you guys been doing.
All right. Davis, you're on mute. I'll go ahead and get us rolling here. Yeah, for those that don't know, Davis or my name is Matt Fair, and I am a partner in Western Slope Consulting, and our firm has been hired by the town to develop a parks, recreation, and trails master plan for Paonia. And that project is known as Paonia in Motion. And so, yeah, before I get into things, let me just quickly kind of what we were hoping to cover this evening. One, just a quick round of introductions. Two, a very brief overview of what the project's all about. And then we'd like to spend the bulk of our time with you all kind of talking about the input summary that we shared with you all in this week's packet. Kind of getting some feedback on the board's position on maybe exploring ideas for different town-owned facilities and properties. Any feedback that you all may have on the outreach engagement process for Paonia in Motion, and then if we have time, some of these other items in terms of needs, challenges, and opportunities, and any specific ideas that folks may have for addressing those. And then wrap up with just a quick discussion about next steps for the project. And then, yeah, hopefully wrap up by 6:15 so you guys have a little bit of a break before your meeting this evening.
Okay.
And quickly, I'm Davis Fair. I'm the other half of Western Slope Consulting. As some of you probably know, I've done work in the past for the town. I did the Highway 133 corridor plan. I reviewed the Riverbank PUD application and worked on a couple of other things over there. I'm familiar with the town. I've mountain biked in Jumbo Mountain, and it's a wonderful place. And you've got a great little community over there. And I'm looking forward to completing this park and recreation master plan for you folks.
Yeah, and so the rest of our team, so as I noted earlier, Davis and I, we're the lead, and our firm, if you're not familiar, we're based over here in Carbondale, so pretty close to you guys. And yeah, both Davis and I have spent a fair amount of time over in that part of the state, so very familiar with Paonia. And then we have a couple of firms that are working with us on our team, and they have sort of select roles that they're helping us out with. And so one firm is Green Play, which is based over in the Boulder area, and they're helping us. They've already done some pretty detailed inventory work, looking at the various parks and trail systems in Paonia. And then they'll also, as we move forward with the project, help us pull together cost estimates, sort of level of service analysis, things like that, that'll ultimately be folded into the master plan. And then Jim Leggett, he's also based over in the Denver area, and his key role will be developing illustrations. He does these before and after sketches to help visualize what an amenity or upgrade to a park or trail system could look like. And then he'll also be helping us work on developing more detailed sort of site plans for the different parks, trailhead areas, things like that. So that's our team. I don't know if the board, if you all would like to do just quick introductions. I know we've spoken with a number of you on some of our previous calls, but I don't think everybody.
Well, I'm Mary Backren, Mayor. And yeah, I've been on several of the calls.
I'm Nick Johnson.
Karen Budinger, trustee.
Bill Bear, trustee, longtime Paonia resident. Tammy Mack, trustee, and I did spend 42 years in the Roaring Fork Valley, so very familiar with some of the stuff you've spoken about. And I attended the jumbo session. That was the only one I was able to attend.
Michelle Pattison, trustee. I've been on a few of the sessions with you.
All right. Well, did we get everybody?
No, Dave Knutson. We moved here in 2003, avid trail runner, and I attended one of your public input sessions.
All right. Well, yeah, and I haven't said it before, but thank you for carving out some time prior to your meeting tonight to have a bit of a work session with us. We do really appreciate it. Another key group of folks involved with this project is the community action team. And I won't go through the whole list here, but kind of these folks, they represent various organizations or advocacy groups in and around Paonia. And so they sort of have three key roles with the project. One is helping guide the community outreach and engagement process. So as we move forward with the project, we're touching base with these folks to say, what are we using the right outreach channels? Are we, the radio, newspaper, email blast, things like that, and then getting feedback from them on how we maybe need to adjust our approach so that we're reaching a broader audience and helping to keep the community informed as the project moves forward. And then two is related to outreach, is engagement. And so we're working with these folks to get feedback on the various engagement activities that we're using to gather input from the community. And again, fine tuning those activities as we move forward with the project. Their second kind of key responsibility or role is to help advocate for the project. And in terms of advocate, just encourage their friends, their neighbors, family members, folks they know in the community to get involved with Paonia in Motion and hopefully participate and provide input. And then three, once we get to kind of wrapping things up and shift from the planning to implementation effort, our hope is that these folks will continue to stay involved, help support the town and partner with the town to implement the ideas and projects that emerge and are ultimately captured in the master plan. I mean, from our perspective and kind of what we've heard from some of the conversations we've been having, and based on our experience with other communities and working on other master plans, is if the implementation of the plan solely falls on the town, it becomes pretty challenging. And I used to work for the town of Eagle. I know what it's like to be on town staff, and you have plenty of other stuff going on, and then you get this stuff kind of lumped on top of all that. It becomes pretty overwhelming. So the goal here is to try and distribute that workload so that there's more folks involved and more opportunity to actually make things happen. And that's ultimately our goal is, two kind of goals we have is one, reach as many people and get as many people as we can involved in participating in the project. And then two is have a plan that actually results in on the ground change. And I know that's something I learned pretty early on in my planning career. I haven't been doing this for too long, but I worked on a couple plans where you had all these great ideas and it was this great fancy document, and then it just didn't go anywhere. And that's not really all that exciting. It's fun to be a part of these projects, but really what's that for me, and I think Davis would concur, is actually seeing things happen in the community. And I know in some of the other communities we've been working in, and I think Paonia too, folks get involved in these planning processes, and then things kind of stagnate afterwards, and it starts to feel like you plan things to death, and I think folks get to the point where they just want to see things happen. So that's really So those are kind of our two primary objectives through this project is to get as many people involved as possible so that a lot of voices are represented in the master plan, and then two, leave you all with a plan that will be implementable and hopefully start being implemented before we even wrap things up. So
Matt, I might mention too that along the lines of what he just said, that having a variety of folks involved helps build ownership in the end result. And that ownership will carry this forward and give it life beyond, just this process. So that helps too, and people will be intimately knowledgeable about the contents and the action items.
So if there are any questions or comments, certainly feel free to interrupt and we can pause and discuss those. I'll just keep kind of plugging through all this because again, our hope is to spend most of our time this evening having a group conversation, but certainly if there's any questions or comments, feel free to let us know.
Matt, I see Dave's got his hand up.
Yep.
Yeah, in the public comment, I noticed that there were no representatives of people that are dirt bikers or four-wheelers, and they used to be pretty big users of the Jumbo Mountain area, and I still don't see them on the list of people involved. That's all.
Thanks, Dave. And I know you mentioned that during the input session a week or so ago, and that's on our to-do list is do some targeted outreach and get those folks involved. It's certainly a user group we don't want to have ignored.
And Dave, I would mention too, if you have some names of folks you'd like to throw at us either directly or through Corinne, we'd be happy to reach out to them as well.
Thanks.
So in terms of the project, there's we've broken it down into 3 phases. And I'll just walk quickly through what those phases are, sort of what the time frame is and what the purpose is. So right now we're in phase 1. And the focus of phase 1 is really trying to understand where Paonia is at today. And so our team has been working on a current conditions inventory, which is essentially will be a document that establishes a baseline of where things are at today in Paonia. And our hope is to have that document available this week. So that'll kind of establish this baseline of where things are at today. And then also part of this phase 1 is gathering ideas for the future and also looking at trends. So in terms of trends, we're looking at are there recreational activities in Colorado or even more locally in Delta County that are gaining popularity and maybe some things that we all need to think about in terms of amenities, programs, things like that we need to capture in the master plan so that there's opportunity to sort of capitalize or accommodate those sports or recreational activities that are gaining popularity. And then also working through these conversations we've been having with different stakeholder groups and the community, the broader community about what are Paonia's assets, where are their opportunities in Paonia, what are Paonia's challenges and what are the needs for the future. And so the tentative timeframe for this first phase, so we got things rolling in early January, and our hope is to sort of button things up with phase 1 at the end of this month. So following phase 1 is phase 2, which seems to make sense. So in the next phase, we'll be focused on where does the community want to be? So looking down the road, what are the community's visions and goals that sort of describe the community's aspirations for Paonia's parks, recreation amenities, recreation programs, trails, public spaces, etc. And so once we have this sort of long-term aspirational our ideas for the future, then we'll actually start delving into the details of, okay, here's where we're at today, which is what we figured out in phase 1. Phase 2 is where do we want to be in the future? And so what are our steps to actually achieving or at least working towards that desired future? So that's where we'll, at the end of April, we have tentatively planned a design workshop where we'll actually come over to Paonia for several days in a row and sit down with stakeholder groups and the broader community to start sketching out, again, some of these before and after sketches. You can see an example down in the lower corner of just a sample after sketch that Jim Leggett prepared. And then on the right-hand side is just a example from another project we worked on of what a site plan might look like. So we'll actually develop very detailed illustrations and concepts for the parks, trail systems, recreation amenities, things like that folks want to see happen in Paonia. And that are those items or those implementation projects or programs that help the community achieve its desired future. And so in terms of the tentative timeframe for phase 2, so there'll be a little bit of overlap between phase 1 and phase 2, but starting this month, probably towards the end of the month, start shifting gears towards phase 2, and then hope to bring phase 2 to a conclusion in June. And then the last phase, phase 3, is really, it'll be focused on pulling together an action plan or implementation matrix that serves as a roadmap for how to get things done. So it'll be a very detailed action plan or implementation plan that talks about the different projects that have been identified, different programs, sort of tentative time frame for implementation for those, who's the lead or kind of who could be the lead on these different projects or programs, who are potential partners, what sort of resources are available or needed for implementation of the different projects and programs. And then also maybe identifying, if it'd be helpful, some metrics to help measure how are we being successful. So for example, if the project is to expand trails on Jumbo Mountain, a metric could be how many miles of trail have been built per year, so you can kind of see, sort of track how much progress is being made. And so, yeah, this implementation plan, it'll be integrated with the Parks, Recreation, and Trails Master Plan. And so, yeah, really phase 3 will be focused on, first part will be focused on developing the implementation plan. And then the second part of phase 3 will be pulling everything together into the master plan for the town. And then at that point, we hope to work with you all to adopt the plan as an official document of the town, and then yeah, get the ball rolling on implementation. And as I noted earlier, there's no reason why implementation can't start before the plan is completed. I know in a number of communities we worked in, they kind of wait until the plan's fully wrapped up before they start thinking about implementation. But once we get to probably once we get into phase 2, where there's some pretty solid ideas of what folks want to see happen in Paonia, the ball on implementation could certainly start rolling at that point. So something to keep in mind. And I know in the packet, and I don't want to get sidetracked here, but there is an AARP grant that's available right now that could offer some funding to start doing some implementation.
Matt, I might add too, that in addition to the AARP grant that some folks want to pursue, we have people that, have been involved with Jumbo Mountain that have gotten sort of re-energized and reactivated, and they are beginning to hold meetings again, work with BLM and Delta County on that area. So that's kind of an exciting piece to see people already taking the bull by the horns as we're going through this process, because there's no reason to wait on things if people have sort of a concept and a plan. And then the other pieces will come together when we build this document and put the action plan together.
And so just to conclude, in terms of tentative time frame for the phase 3, we're looking at, again, some overlap between phase 2 and phase 3 in June, and then hope to have everything wrapped up by August. So I'll just pause there quickly and see if there's any questions, comments on the process for Paonia in motion.
I do have a question, a couple questions actually.
Okay.
So one of the first one was there was an Astro Park listed. What is an Astro Park?
That's a great question. So that idea emerged from one of the community input sessions that we had a little over a week ago. And so an Astro Park is essentially, my understanding, and I'm not an expert, but based on what I heard, that's a place where you can go to do some stargazing. So there might be a platform where you can bring your telescope and look at the stars, or just a platform where you can hang out and enjoy the stars. There could be some signage that explains what the different constellations in the sky are, things like that.
Cool.
I have to say that it was it's a very novel concept. I mean, people like to stargaze, but having a formal site that's away from lights and that kind of thing is a pretty novel and creative idea.
That's very cool. And then my second question is, so how many people so far do you think have been involved in this process?
That's a good question. And that actually came up on one of our input sessions. I would say the website's been getting some pretty good, seems to be getting some pretty good engagement. A lot of folks are visiting the website. It's hard to say how many folks have visited. I would say based on sort of the idea wall that's on the website, we've got maybe 15 or so, maybe more ideas posted. The focus group sessions, I would say, involved maybe 40 to 50 people. And there was some overlap there, but I would say maybe 40-ish individuals. And then the community input sessions, I would say each of those maybe had 10 or so folks involved. So I would say at this point, maybe 60 to 70 different individuals have participated.
I would say in that range for sure. Yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. And yeah, just for the board's information, I am in the process of writing the Aarp Grant to do upgrades to Town Park that have been identified in this process. So, and that includes sound system and lights at the stage, upgrades to the stage, electrical upgrades, Wi-Fi, a table with a shade cover by the play area, and a handicapped accessible bathroom out by the play area. So that grant will go in for sure.
That's
That's
exciting.
So yeah. All right, great. Thank you.
Michelle?
Yeah, Mary, I just wanted to check in with you on that grant. I saw someone post on Facebook that they were trying to get together a group of volunteers to do the same. So I don't know if you were aware of that or have coordinated with them at all.
It depends on who's putting it out. If it's Susan Capps, I'm working with her to get those volunteers.
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, we're working closely together.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure we didn't have competing
Okay.
projects.
Yeah.
And then I did have one question about the information presented. I noticed that one of the findings would be to develop a signage plan related to the Jumbo Mountain Trails. And I think signage was mentioned in a few places. I just wanted to see if if your plans are to incorporate the 2018 wayfinding information that was done by the Creative Coalition.
Absolutely. We don't have a copy of that, but we'll reach out to them. We certainly don't want to reinvent the wheel or duplicate anything that's already been done and that folks are moving forward with. So
Okay.
we'll get to that.
Okay, they went through a pretty extensive process developing signage and getting community support for that. And it is, I'm pretty sure it's on the Creative Coalition website. The whole wayfinding plan is available.
Okay, well, thank you for letting us know. Karen, I see you raised your hand. Oh, you're on mute, I think.
Is that better?
Yes.
Looking at Paonia's properties, et cetera, for opportunities, I'm wondering what opportunities might open up with the schools that are going to be abandoned or repurposed, or I don't know the answer to that. And does the town get any use of that after the schools move?
I think that's gonna be dependent on the schools.
I will say, based on what we've been hearing, that the opportunities that I think on town-owned properties that might that we're probably going to look at exploring is what happens to the football field area in Town
Yeah.
Park. With the high school moving, it sounds like the Hotchkiss, that area frees up. So I think we can.
I'm thinking
ask-
that'd be a great place to put the skate park so it's not so noisy by the houses.
Now let's put the skate park by the new K8 and let's put a dog park in where the football field is.
Well, we'll have to
Not to
talk.
argue with you, Karen, but
Well, and I would add that we have had input about, if the school moves, what can happen out there, what can happen in Town Park with the football field and other opportunities. So we are getting input on that and we will be looking into that. We were up till now, we were sort of waiting to see what the decision was going to be.
Good.
Yep, I would say and these aren't town-owned properties, but they might be opportunities that they sort of avail themselves with the moving of the schools is the vocational or
Yes.
the tech building, because I know based on some of the comments we've been hearing that the school is looking to kind of, I don't think they want that anymore. Not to say that the town wants it either, but
We could use an auditorium.
sure. So it could be an opportunity. I don't know if it could serve as a rec center. I'm not familiar enough with that building to know kind of what it could serve as, but it is an opportunity. And let's see what else. I think those were kind of the two big ones, was that with the football field going away and then the tech building, kind of what could happen there. And again, it's a school facility, but it sounds like they'd love to pass it on to somebody else if they can. So I'm not saying that the town needs to take that on, but maybe there's another organization. So we're at about 6. So we've already kind of gotten into a little bit of a group discussion. And I just wanted to throw out some questions. Feel free to respond to any of these that maybe you have some thoughts or feedback on. But some questions we had were in reviewing the sort of initial summary of input, did anything stand out to you? Do you have any thoughts or feedback? And related to that, are there any ideas that you would like to add to, or that you felt weren't necessarily called out in that summary? 2, I think it would help us to know, in that summary document, we identified some of the town-owned properties that we've been getting some ideas for, and I think it would help us to know from the board's perspective, are there any concerns about exploring ideas for any of those properties that were identified? And then, if you've been involved with with any of the engagement activities so far, or seen some of our outreach materials, if you have any feedback or input on how we've been trying to share information with the community and also get folks involved, happy to hear any thoughts, comments on that. And then if you have any ideas on needs that the town has, challenges, opportunities, or specific ideas, again, certainly welcome to share any thoughts or comments you may have. So with that, I will open it up for discussion.
And as you think about all of these things, if something occurs to you tomorrow, the next day, a week from now, feel free to share that directly with us or through Corinne, because we're happy to incorporate that into our findings.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I apologize for interjecting here as the town treasurer, but there are three constituencies that I think the consultants ought to at least offer an opportunity for comment. The three are the Pan American Property Owners Association. They would be considerably impacted by the development of the Jumbo Mountain access. The Vista Creek Homeowners Association, and though they're not in the municipal limits, Hawks Haven Homeowners Association, they would all be greatly impacted by some of the directions that are being suggested in this planning activity. And that, I just wanted to make those observations so the consultants might be given an opportunity to talk with those people.
Ross, do you have key contact people for each of those groups?
I can tell you the Pan American Property Owners Association, I'm the treasurer.
Okay,
The president is Carlin Luna. And I'm sure that she would appreciate some input. Dave, who is the president of your Vista Creek Homeowners Association?
That's Pam Schofield.
I think that they would, she would be pleased to have an input. I don't know who's Hawks Havens.
That would be Zach. Gosh, I'm blanking on his last name.
Crap.
Thank you.
Raffle?
Yep. Thanks.
what was the last name on that one? Zach?
Crapful. It's KRAPFL, and I can send you their contact information for all three contacts tomorrow.
Oh, that'd be
That would
great.
Yeah, thank you, Corinne.
You're welcome.
I would also like to mention, if I could, I would like to see us focus a lot on youth, because there's just not a lot of stuff for youth to do in Paonia. So the community center, the teen center, Ellen Hansen Smith Center, other things for kids to do. Kids have got to have something to do.
It's important. And Tammy, I wanted to let you know, I've had a conversation with Ben Graves from the Nature Connection, and we've also reached out to the library, LaDonna Gunn and Tracy Inhope, I think. So we have reached out for input on how to engage the youth. I know Ben's, essentially he said that you need to have some sort of fun in-person activity for youth. So we'll try and fold something like that into our trips over to Paonia and offer them ice cream or pizza or whatever, make it a fun activity, because he said based on his experience getting feedback from local youth, doing like a survey or take-home thing, it can be challenging to get input that way. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will say that it's, in this process of during COVID, and hopefully things are going in the right direction now, but not being able to do the face-to-face kinds of meetings and events that we had hoped to be doing makes it a challenge. But we're hoping that you, as I understand, you all are going to be opening up to public pretty soon. And we are, as Matt mentioned, in April, going to do face-to-face stuff over there as well. So we'll try to capitalize on those opportunities. Dave?
Just wanted to mention, I didn't see anything in the playground stuff about music. They make outdoor musical instruments for playgrounds now. I just wanted to throw that out because that's something I've seen in other communities that are really great for the kids. With your maps that are on the that was in your initial report, it isn't real clear where we have public access into those lots we own. I mean, some of them go through a street, but like for instance, P Hill, how do you get to that? How could people actually access that? And then finally, that last second to last picture about town-owned properties showing a segment crossing the river. For some reason, I thought it was closer to the library than it is, or maybe I'm not seeing the location of the library very well on it. But I was just curious whether that dog leg looking property, is that actually the right one, or is it properties further up the river?
I'm not sure if that one was the riverbank bridge location or
Right.
or what that was. We can double check that. Matt, was that something from the assessor's map?
Dave, that is the correct
Okay.
parcel. Yeah,
Okay.
and I don't, if you can see my screen and the little hand, the library is kind of down here at the very bottom.
Okay. For some reason, I thought we had a parcel that was directly behind the library, but I'm obviously wrong on that. And then the last picture shows the Mountain Coal Company. And I'm not sure that yellow, is that BLM land?
That is, yep.
Okay.
So Dave, to your point, there is another town-owned parcel that is sort of southwest of the library. That's near the 3rd Street Bridge.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
There-
called Twin Lakes.
Okay.
Yeah, I know about that one. Yeah.
And the town does own a couple of parcels of land that are directly behind the library. They're leased to the library, and it's where the library's gazebo and things sit back there.
Okay.
Right, these ones right here, yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Dave, I think you bring up a great question about access. And I think specifically with P Hill, that'll be something we'll need to have a conversation with the cemetery district about. See if there may be an opportunity for maybe a small parking lot. I mean, I don't know what necessarily will go on P Hill, but that there could be some conversations there with the cemetery district about potential public access. And I'm assuming that there's a road, that there's some form of access allowed on it in order to get to that town-owned parcel.
Yeah, I think you can get it from O Road.
Okay.
And then, yeah, because you have a road up to the cemetery too, so. And there, I've climbed P Hill, and yeah, there's a road up there at the top.
So in terms of any of these town-owned properties, I mean, some of the ideas that have been presented for P Hill is a staircase up to the top. Maybe it's a place to have where you could have dogs off leash and hike around with your dogs. I know there's been some concerns about that raised by folks who say that there's a population of mule deer that live on P Hill. So there's some concerns about impacts on wildlife. And then, yeah, the Astro Park idea was presented. And then the parcel of land that's owned, the Twin Lakes parcel, we've heard that that's sort of been earmarked for maybe some affordable housing. Some other ideas that have been thrown out are maybe that could be a campground. And there's a number of concepts that we could work on to show how maybe a park could integrate with development of that property, or what a campground could look like, just to offer some different options. And then the parcel that crosses the river, we recognize that there's the long term, the goal is to have a pedestrian bridge over the river there. And what we could look at exploring is maybe, are there some other enhancement that could be made on either riverbank to help sort of support and enhance the trail crossing, or the bridge there. So with that said, I guess, do any of these properties, when you think about us maybe exploring different ideas and concepts, are there any red flags, any concerns that we should be aware of? Are any of these parcels just not something we should just not include?
Yeah, I don't know what you can do with the Mountain Coal Company properties since the town has water taps on standby for them, but that's it. That is
Okay.
privately held by the coal company.
Right, and we would reach out to them. I mean, we're not going to start developing concepts for their land until they give us a thumbs up, or if they say no, we'll just have to, figure something else out. So I'll take silence as kind of a thumbs up to go for it, and certainly, if I'm wrong, let me know.
No, I think you're right, Matt.
Okay.
I thank both you and Davis very much for coming and talking to us about this. I look forward to getting an update as the two remaining phases go on, and am really excited about having a plan to go forward.
Thank you.
And
Matt,
all
I've got one comment.
Yeah, go back.
Yeah, we have this ditch that's being piped, and I don't know if I think that goes right along P Hill. So I would love to see that ditch turned into a hiking trail, biking trail, walking trail. And I don't know if from that ditch you can go up to P Hill, and certainly out to Volunteer Park. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, and we've had feedback similar to that. And we are going to reach out to the ditch companies and so on to see what their thoughts are. That can be a challenge, but it's a great opportunity when you can walk right on top of the ditch and have a sort of a pre-made trail.
Absolutely. Thank you.
If
So-
Glenwood do it, if Glenwood could do it, Paonia can do it.
Okay.
So I was just going to say, I think that's a good segue into next steps and maybe wrapping up here since we're getting close to 6:15. And as Davis noted earlier, certainly feel free to send us an email with any other ideas, questions, comments, concerns, etc. that you may have related to any of this. So in terms of next steps, it was just noted, we're working on reaching out to property owners, ditch companies, the railroad, etc., to inquire, essentially ask them if they're amenable to collaborating with us on Paonia in Motion. And as I noted earlier, we don't want to start developing concepts for private land and then surprise people with, oh, look what we did, look what we came up with for your property. That doesn't always go over very well. So we want to ask first. So related to that is also researching and compiling information about rights of way, easements, things like that. And I think this relates to the conversation about ditch opportunities. So understanding, do the ditch companies actually have rights of way for ditches? Are they easements? Easements can be tricky if the language for the easement says, well, this easement is only for X, Y, and Z. If it doesn't say public access or things like that, it can be a little more challenging, not to say it's impossible. And then we also will work to host additional focus group sessions on a sort of an as needed basis. And it sounds like, based on some of the feedback we've been getting, we need to have a focus group session with sort of the motorized users, folks who ride dirt bikes, snowmobiles, etc. Do some engagement with local youth. And then also it's been suggested to us that we do maybe some targeted outreach to Paonia's senior community. So those sort of initially are the 3 additional focus group sessions that we'll work on coordinating. There's been discussions about our interest expressed in the Rails to Trails initiative. So we're going to work on coordinating sort of a working group for that to explore what that would entail. And part of that, again, is reaching out to the railroad and seeing what their long-term plans for the railroad corridor is. And then let's see, I'll keep moving through this quickly since we're at 6:15. We're working on pulling together a community survey, and we'll make that available both online and hard copies. And so what we're thinking in terms of the survey, based on a lot of the input we've gathered so far, instead of asking a lot of broad questions that you may see on the community survey, our hope is to actually maybe ask a few broader questions, but maybe use the survey to, the majority of questions in the survey to delve down into more specifics, like, for example, would folks support a Rails to Trails initiative, things like that. So get some more, have those questions be more targeted based on the sort of the key themes, big ideas that have come out of the input we've gathered so far. Yeah, continuing to promote and encourage folks to get involved and continue to gather input via the website, and then the idea boxes with the input cards that are distributed around town. As I noted earlier, finalize and distribute the current conditions inventory document, which our goal is to get that out this week. And then we need to start working on coordinating the design workshop, which we have tentatively scheduled for the end of April. We're trying to shoot to have it during a time of year when we could host some activities outdoors, kind of make a fun, have some fun community events as part of that whole period of time. So the design workshop is a roughly 3-day period of time where Davis and I and Jim Leggett will be in Paonia doing work and hosting community events. And then finally, and I don't know if we have time to discuss it now, but as was noted earlier, there is an AARP Community Challenge Grant, and that application is due April 14th. And yeah, as the mayor noted, there is a group of folks who is sort of coming together to work on that. And it seems like the focus will be looking at opportunities to make enhancements to Town Park. Yeah, and that's all we have. Yeah, that went by quickly. So if there's any other questions, comments, happy to try and answer those or respond to those, or yeah, let you guys have a break before you have your meeting tonight.
Okay, well, I'm not seeing anything out there. So thank you again, guys, so much
Thank
for
you.
coming. And we look forward to engaging with you further.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to close this work session, and you people, everyone has a 12-minute break. I'll see you back here at 6:30. Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
To that effect.
Motion to approve the agenda.
All right, a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, seeing none, let's move on to announcements. Does anyone have an announcement? All right. Yes, who has their hand up? Dave, yes.
Yeah, I just want to further define eating crow. I woke up on the wrong side of bed and ranted to the trustees about late packets and things, and I just want to apologize for taking up the time. I understand why things go into the packet at the last minute, and I'm more at peace with it. Thanks for your tolerance.
Thank you, Dave. Much appreciated. Yes, Michelle.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate your statement on that. I do also like to have a full packet before the weekend, though, and I understand that we have community members who do as well. And I know that there are a number of reasons why that's challenging sometimes, but I wonder if it might be worth considering or adding a discussion to a future meeting to talk about whether we should change the deadlines related to the packets to make that possible for staff. so it's not so last minute.
Thank you, Michelle. All right. Any other announcements? Okay, I do have one. There is going to be a vaccination clinic in Hotchkiss on Friday of this week. And it is open to everyone who is eligible, which is everyone over 60, frontline grocery workers or ag workers, licensed childcare providers, educators, healthcare workers, emergency service workers, anyone 18 to 59 that has at least 2 comorbid conditions. There is a link on our website that you can get to register for this. You need to register before you can attend. And then you can call the health department at 874-2172 to register as well. Also, just a sideline, you can register if you are under, if you don't fit these qualifications, you can call and be asked to be put on a wait list. What happens, for example, at the Saturday clinic, people end up doing no-shows. So they have extra vaccines. If you're on a no-show list, they will call you in and you can get your vaccine even if you are outside of the designated groups. So please, please register. We want every single one of those vaccines to actually go into people's arms. Yes, Mick.
Yeah, I couldn't get muted. Will that be noted on the website?
On our website, yeah.
Yes, okay, good, thank you.
And Karen?
I just wanted to know that the sign-up sheet is not the county sign-up. It's a different sign-up. They have, the Hotchkiss place is got their own sign-up, so don't call the county. And also, if you have already called the county and you're on a list there, and you do get on the list for this Friday, be sure to cancel your appointment with the county. After
If you have an appointment, I'm going to break in here. If you have an appointment, but do not back out of the county's registration, stay registered with the county. I got a call this afternoon because I thought, well, I'm not going to use the county. I'm just going to use the other one. And they called me and said, are you opting out? So be careful. Don't cancel your registration with the county because you sign up for this.
Let me clarify. I meant cancel your appointment with the county if you're scheduled for 2 weeks from now and you're going to go this Friday. Cancel your 2 weeks appointment. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Any other announcements? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to recognition of visitors and guests. This is a time when people who are not, this is a time for people to comment on something that is not on the agenda. You will have 5 minutes maximum to do that. So does anyone like to address the board about something not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, let's move forward to staff reports. Corinne, you're up.
Okay. I actually don't have any submitted questions or any other follow-up. The written report is included in the packet. The only thing that I did not include in that packet was I did have my monthly meeting with the other town administrators. I find those very enlightening. There was some conversation continued at the meeting about a joint building department as well as other joint activities that some of the municipalities may want to consider participating in. And as we get more information, I will share that with the board. I realized I've been remiss in giving any updates on One Delta County lately. They are going, they have a few different projects that they are reviewing right now. A lot of the information hasn't been released, including to the entire board for One Delta County. The meetings for One Delta County are happening every other month, and I will add that into my written reports when we have our next meeting, which is toward the end of this month.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Corinne from the board? Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, I just have a few questions, and I'm sorry, Corinne, I did not get these to you in advance, like I tried to, but for the in-person board meetings, you have listed that we're starting that this month. I'm actually going to be out of town the second, when we're holding the second meeting this month. My assumption was that it would be on Zoom. So will we have any Zoom integration with the meeting? Are we going to try to do that for future in-person meetings?
We were not. When we initially set up the Zoom option through the resolution, there was discussion about that, and was ultimately the consensus was not to offer that when we're meeting in person. I don't know exactly how. I tried to figure out how I could facilitate a Zoom meeting and integrate it with a live meeting, and I've been unsuccessful doing that with the with my limited knowledge. It doesn't mean it can't be done. But my understanding was that that was not something that we were going to offer. That, of course, viewing it, because we do record it, and when we're in person, I also broadcast it live on the YouTube channel. It can be viewed, and any information for the packet could be provided, but typically in-person meeting that board members are not at, or participants are not at, they're not recognized as being in attendance or having that level of participation.
Okay.
And the other thing is, you can always submit questions and whatever to Corinne or whoever as far as the packet goes, and they can be answered in the course of the meeting.
Sure, and I can do that for the next meeting, but more generally, I feel like we've had a lot more public participation through Zoom, and I would love to see us continue to offer some kind of way for people to participate remotely. Even though it's getting safer, there are people who are still not vaccinated, who may not be comfortable coming to our meetings in person. I'd love to, if it's not Zoom, maybe a way for people to participate by phone the way the county does. Just some way to continue to offer that, I think, would be great.
I'm happy to look at it, but I just want to let the board know as well that right now that would be me. And so we'll have to figure that out, because it's very difficult to participate in the meeting. Doing it here where I'm only focused on the Zoom typically, and I'm not doing minutes or taking votes and things like that. I've gotten used to this format, but trying to pay attention to a live Zoom and participate in an in-person meeting and recognize when people are calling in and things may be a little bit tricky, but I'll definitely reach out and look and see how other communities are handling this, if they're doing hybrid in-person and virtual meeting attendance.
And once
Okay,
we get the new office person in too, that gives us another hand on, another set of hands in the mix that could possibly make this more doable.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. My other question, or really a comment, you mentioned in the report where things are at with the school district changes. And I just wanted to touch on that. I have heard from some community members that they really don't feel like the board is speaking for them when it comes to the changes happening at the school district, because we have not taken a position on that or really had any discussion about that at our meetings. I'm not sure if that's something we could add to the next agenda so that we can have a bigger conversation around that, or how the other board members feel about that. But I think we should at least acknowledge that.
Okay, thank you.
I can reach out to the school board or to the school district and see if they have someone that may be available that could come and speak and attend. That's been a tricky part through this, and I'm sure you see that in here. There's even through our Paonia in Motion presentation, there's more questions than answers when it comes to exactly what this consolidation will look like and the level of requested participation from the school board for the town. I believe, no ill intention, that their focus, of course, was reaching out to the student and parent population of the schools. But I know in the conversations that I've had with the superintendent that she has stated that she would be happy to answer questions. So I'll definitely reach out and see if there's some availability, and maybe they could attend a meeting, maybe not be the next one, but very soon, and provide some information or an update to the town.
Well, and actually, I think it might be better to do this maybe sometime in the summer when they have more of their plans gelled, so that we actually have an understanding of how they're moving forward. And we might have some resolution then on some of these things like the vote deck building or whatever, versus having them come and say, well, we don't know, we don't know, we don't know, we haven't decided yet. Tammy.
Yeah, I was
Madam Mayor,
constantly-
Madam Mayor, can you increase your volume? I can hardly hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna plug in my headphones.
I was also contacted by a citizen asking what the town board is going to do. And I think one of the things we maybe need to understand is what happens to a rural community when it loses its high school, because this isn't completely uncommon. And, you know, Paonia has lost a lot of jobs, a lot of income through the mines. We've basically pretty much lost the mines, and that's been a big blow. We're looking at a drought. We're looking at all kinds of problems, but what happens to a community when it loses its high school? I think that's kind of the broader question. So I don't know if that's something anybody could look into, but I did see there was a one website, but the guy charges money to tell you what happens
Oh.
to communities because he studied this for years. But you know, I'm sure there are some answers out there. I think we as a board need to be prepared for whatever is coming. So just food for thought.
Thank you, Tammy. Any other questions for Corinne from the board? Yes, Dave.
I'm a little ignorant on number one. It says November coordinated. Is that all the other towns getting together, Corinne? I don't know what that is.
The county holds an election in November. And so if that's when the town would participate in it as a special election, if there was anything that that the town was looking at that needed to go to the voters. Nothing's been discussed. I just wanted the board to be aware that that deadline, what that deadline is, now that the county's reached out and let us know what that is.
Okay, and finally, any further word on the Paonia ditch?
I'm gonna defer to Bo, who was, I know we were scheduling.
Corinne and I are in the process of getting that meeting scheduled, and when that is set up, we will inform the trustees on the results of that meeting. The president of the ditch company is out, so it might be April before we have something substantive.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else from the board? Okay, seeing none, we have a couple of members of the public that would like to talk. The phone number ending 3883. Please unmute yourself by *6. And introduce yourself when you start speaking.
Hi. I don't know what this phone
Please.
number is, so I'm assuming it, since no one else spoke up.
Yeah,
that was my
that's
phone
you.
that
And please introduce yourself.
This is Suzanne Watson.
Oh.
And yeah, there's no Sprint right now, so these Zoom meetings are kind of hard for people with Sprint service. So first of all, I'd like to point to something on the agenda. It says, if you wish to speak, press 6 on your phone to let us know. And I think it's *9 that people have to press, and then you press *6 to unmute your phone. So in case anybody's listening and they're on the phone and they don't understand the process, it's *9. That being said, I had a question about the building inspection. You were saying you were talking about to the other town administrators. And I want to know, what is the benefit to other communities to have a joint building inspector? What do they see? I know they don't have the problem that we do with the building inspection that we currently have. People have, and if you wait until January of next year to finally look at maybe doing something, that's 1.5 years after this huge attempts by the public to let you know the problems that we have here. And that's really too long to wait. We have a system with very unreasonable fees. We have illegal fees, illegal unauthorized fees being charged, and we've been promised change. And I don't understand why we have to wait to see if we can't come up with an agreement with other communities who probably share the same guy anyway. I mean, do we, he doesn't have to get permission to help us out. I think he's kind of, Hotchkiss didn't ask permission from the part-time employer that Bruce worked for. So I'm kind of wondering, why can't we come up with a solution a little faster than that? And what motivation do other towns really have to form this system when their building department is not broken like ours is? So I guess I just want to know what other administrators are talking to you about.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne.
And to answer that, that would be all of them. All of the communities are participating in the conversation other than the county, because the county doesn't have building code regulations. And the overwhelming reason are, basic reason, of course, it goes deeper, but the twofold reasons are continuity for contractors and areas of expertise. All communities find that they have strengths and weaknesses within their building department, and collectively looking at a building department that covers all of the individual municipalities that may offer expertise in planning, where others have expertise in commercial and another may have expertise in residential. They formulate one building department that then can specialize and focus in on what the building permit need is in their area of expertise, that's shared financially among all the communities, instead of having potentially one building official that has one strong area of expertise and some weaknesses in others. So those are the main reasons that that we've been looking at as a community. And so that's my answer.
Okay, thank you. And the phone number ending in 4544.
Hello, this is Paige Smith at 215 Delta Avenue. Thank you, Mayor Bachman. I would just like to make a request with, I think you're hearing me, right?
Yes, yes, we hear you.
Oh, good. My computer was telling me something else. I'm sorry. With starting in-person meetings the next meeting time, Corinne, could you please ensure that all of your staff wear masks and they cover their nose and their mouth at all times? That's not always been the case when we've been meeting in person, and I'm really quite uncomfortable with that. So that's just my request. Thank you.
Thank you, Paige. All right. Anyone else from the public? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to Public Works and Utilities. Travis? Travis, are you there?
Sorry,
yeah, there he is.
I lost my mouse on my computer. I did have a written report in. We are working on getting the street projects started for 2021. We did get the old wastewater treatment plant, the concrete washout section. We did get that completed, cleaned up today. So, and I have talked with the United about making sure that they don't wash out there anymore. Did have a call of a water leak on O Road today, late this afternoon. It's a pretty small one. I got it scheduled for repair first thing in the morning. And that's all I've got, unless you guys have any questions.
All right, questions for Travis from the board? Yes, Bill.
The water leak on O Road, is that our line, or is that a line that goes to another water company?
Where it's leaking at is really close to a connection for a water company, but I do believe it is actually our main 8-inch line that runs through there. But until we get it dug up, I won't know for sure.
And is this any of the new line we laid?
No, sir. No, it's all old line.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Michelle?
Yeah, a couple things. First, thank you on the remediation work. I really appreciate that. And you mentioned in your written report that the data logger installation is scheduled. I'm sorry, I can't remember what data that's actually collecting. So I'm wondering if you can just share that.
That's the data logging for the wastewater treatment plant. It collects the influent flows, the effluent flows, temperature of water, the percentages of our pumps, what they're dosing, the scales for our chlorine, everything that we do on our daily logs for the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank
And one other question, the open labor position, I assume this is a replacement for someone who's no longer with the town, is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay, and are we doing exit interviews when staff members leave town?
We have in the past. The last one was not, he wasn't a full-time employee, so we did not do an exit interview.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Bill?
I just was curious if all that earthwork activity going on the property above the sewer plant, is that going to, looks like they're going to build a pond there. Is there going to be any impact on the sewer plant from that activity?
As far as I know, there won't be any impact to our wastewater treatment plant. I've talked with the owner of doing the work. I have talked to him. What he's trying to, he's wanting to go 12 foot deep and build a pond. But being above our treatment plant and no water that is contributed from the town, I don't see an impact for the town.
But deep puts him down in the alluvium, doesn't it?
Yes, he'll be in alluvium groundwater, which he has already contacted the water commissioner and does have approval for it.
Okay, thank you.
Mick?
Yeah, what streets are we looking to improve for this year?
I'm looking at on 2nd Street between Grand and Main. I want to redo that street. And then the next spot is from 3rd and Grand up as far as we can go with the monies that we have available. And then I do have a schedule to do an overlay on Meadowbrook this year.
Okay, anything else from the board? All right, seeing none, anything from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on to the police report. Chief.
Thank you.
Good evening. So I finally received all the parts for the patrol vehicle. Have been making good progress the last couple of days on it. Hopefully, if things keep on going this way, by the end of the week, beginning of next week, the other car will be out on the road, and then we'll have our full fleet again. We are currently in the process of helping out Hotchkiss with patrolling, doing some traffic enforcement over there, being on call, taking some of their call time from them. They are short-staffed at the moment. What that means is you'll see some Paonia cars in Hotchkiss while we're doing that. We're going to be doing it a couple days a week. The officers have all signed up. All my officers have signed up to take shifts. It's all been voluntary based. They figured since they get 3 days off there, it's a good time they can use a day and help out Hotchkiss with some of their stuff. You will probably the next meeting end up getting an agreement from Hotchkiss. They're going to go through their council, and that way you guys can review the agreement that we have between us. It is, of course, prepared by Bo also. So he's our same attorney, so it worked out pretty well on that one. Now that we know what's going on with the school district, I'm going to be making a meeting with the director and see what that means for our SRO program. See how we're going to continue with that and just kind of get an idea of how they want to continue and proceed with that as well. And that's about all I have right now.
Okay, any questions for the chief? Yes, Bill.
Well, I was concerned about I understood that the police were down in Hotchkiss, and I was concerned by the fact that we did not have or appears we don't have an intergovernmental agreement, but Bo is going to fix that problem. Is that correct?
Yes, there's been one drawn up. We're going to bring it and present it to everybody by the next meeting. But at this time, yes, there will be something in place. Right now, it's an informal agreement that we have with them. Like I said, that'll change.
Well, this brings up a broader question is, do we have a need to form other intergovernmental agreements for us dispatching equipment to other areas?
We have, if there's any kind of an emergency or anything, Delta County has a list for equipment purposes and everything. We have a agreement with Delta County on certain items. If something major were to happen, if they needed law enforcement or vehicles or radios, we already have those in place. With this one, it was a little bit different. They're shorthanded, and we're just trying to help them out a little bit.
Well, I understand that and I support that. I just was concerned about the liability aspects of the town of Paonia. So I'm glad you see it and getting an agreement put together.
Yeah, there's agreement that's been circulated to the and signed off on at the administrative level, which we're okay with. And it just needs to be approved by Hotchkiss, which is taking the liability on, if you will. And there's an indemnity provision for the town of Paonia. So.
Thank you. Dave.
Are they going to start writing tickets when they come back here as fast as they do in Hotchkiss?
Well, yeah.
I'm just joking.
Yeah.
On a serious note,
Mm-hmm.
How do we handle overtime with that particular situation? Because I'm assuming they're going over 40 hours a week and they'd be eligible for overtime. So I'm assuming that's going to be part of the agreement. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, that was all put in the agreement on a price that they have to pay or potentially pay for the officer's usage.
And just as the sideline, that's going to include wear and tear on our vehicles as well.
Correct.
So that we will be reimbursed for that on top of it. Okay, any other questions for the chief? Okay, seeing none, anything from the public? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to Bo and the attorney's report. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Thank you, trustees. I will admit and own that my attorney's report was a late add to the packet. And so I apologize for that. I do think that, as Michelle stated, and it's probably outside the scope of this report, but one of the things that we've been talking about at the staff level is, we're running into both some big picture items and some timing issues with respect to turnaround, within that 2-week time frame. And so one of the things that I'll throw out there is we had the discussion about kind of alternating between a working meeting and a workshop. The other thing that potentially we might want to consider, or the board might want to consider, would be alternatives such as I don't know, hypothetically, like a 3-week meeting schedule, something along those lines, that would maybe give staff a little bit more time. These are kind of broader concepts, but to the initial point, messages received with respect to the memo not being in the initial packet. And from a former town councilor, I can totally appreciate that position, that it's helpful to get that information in one deliverable. So shifting to the report itself, kind of a lot of the issues are on the agenda with respect to the discussion about a workshop for the marijuana ordinance. As I indicated in the memo, Corinne and I have a meeting next Monday with Delta County to discuss the MOU with the county on the North Fork Airport. We've been approached at the staff level with the possibility of the installation of a cell phone tower on the hill next to the existing SBA tower. The burden is on Verizon Wireless to provide additional information on that. I spoke to an attorney with Ireland and Stapleton today to initiate the process with respect to the update of the DMEA franchise agreement. And it is on their radar as well. And then I think that the mayor hit upon the in-person meeting issue, and then the chief hit upon the IGA that the town is going to enter into with Hotchkiss on police department services. So that's everything in my report. Are there any questions?
Yes, Michelle.
Am I looking at the wrong version of the packet, or was the attorney's report not in the packet?
It was not in the packet. It was forwarded in an email earlier today.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Bo? All right, seeing none, anything from the public? Yes, Suzanne.
This is Suzanne Watson. So if this attorney's report were forwarded in an email, when does the general public get to see it?
Corinne, you're muted.
It would be available at town hall. If I update the packet after the general packet has gone out, it will remove any notations and things that are made after the fact to the packet. So once the meetings happen, I don't go back in and update the published packet, but the attorney's report.
I mean, is it in the record? Okay, is it in the permanent storage
Yes.
of meetings? Are you going to include it for that?
Yes, it's in the permanent packet that's kept at town hall.
Or how about online, the ones that are on the Adobe chart? That's what I'm wanting to know.
That is not something that I have started to date.
On the
Okay,
website.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't an answer, but.
All right,
It
Michelle.
is not something that I currently do. But as we continue to have time and staff availability, we'll continue to look at ways to add additional information published on the available formats that are online.
Michelle.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that. Corinne, I did not receive an email from you today with that information. So
I did not either.
if you could forward that to me, that'd be great.
I'll go in right now and check that.
Yeah, I did not get it either.
Yeah. Okay. Corinne, maybe you can do that tomorrow. And let's continue on with the meeting.
I will forward it again.
All right, thank you.
You're
All right, let's move on to the, oh wait, Michelle?
Sorry, just one more request related to the public comment on that. If there's an item that's added to the packet past when the packet is published, would it be possible to include it in the following packet, just so it is accessible to the public after the meeting? That way you don't have to go back and rework the current meeting packet, but it can be available for reference on the packets that are online.
I can try to do that, yes.
All right. If there's nothing else, let's move on to the treasurer's report. Ross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been continuing the review of the Anticipated reserve policy with the Finance and Human Resource Committee. Reviewed and released the payroll, and we have reviewed disbursements with the Finance and Human Resource Committee and recommend approval. And that concludes my report, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Ross. Any questions for Ross from the board? All right, seeing none, anything from the public? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to disbursements. Finance Director report. Yes, Corinne.
I was just, apologies, Mayor. I did want to note that the Finance Director report has been added under staff reports, and we missed that one, but you just, mentioned it, so thank you.
Okay, so we're going to do the Finance Director report now, being that's where it is on the agenda. So Cindy.
I supplied a written report and I'll take any questions.
Okay, any questions for Cindy on her report? Okay, doesn't look like there's anything from the board, anything from the public? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to disbursements.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we approve payment of accounts payable in the amount of $49,211.21, a credit card payment of $5,389.41, the Norris retirement payment of $1,680, an Amazon bill of $174.98, and another Amazon bill of $961.63, payroll taxes of $24,014.26, and payroll direct deposit of $22,213.50.
Okay, can I have a second?
I'd like to second that and comment how well she did that.
Beautifully, actually. Okay, questions from the board for on the disbursements? Yes, Bill.
My question concerned the Kevin Cooper and the 1995 Chevy 3500. What is that about?
It's repairs to the Chevy. He's a mechanic, Kevin Cooper.
Yeah, what was the repair, and
I can't tell you till tomorrow.
is that the secret?
Yeah.
Travis may have to answer that.
And he's probably gone.
Okay.
Oh, there he is.
It was a repair for a snowplow truck. I worked on it, Dominic worked on it, and it was actually short in the wire in the steering column to get, and we had to buy a new parts and stuff for the steering column to get it to run.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions on disbursements? Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, there are a couple references to annual assessment. I'm just wondering if we can get more information on what that is.
They're ditch memberships.
Okay.
We have a lot of those at the beginning of the
Yep.
year.
We have a lot in Pan American that we owe an assessment on too. That's part of the homeowners association. We'll be looking at all these invoices tomorrow. That's why Karen couldn't give you an answer right now, because we haven't seen the actual invoice. We'll be reviewing that in our meeting in the morning.
Which we do before we sign the check. Yeah.
The ditch assessment provides us the irrigation water.
Thank you. And one other question, Mesa County Health. There were a few charges for that.
Those are water sample, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, anything from the public? All right, seeing none, we have a motion and a second to accept disbursements. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Okay, let's move on to regular business. First item on the agenda is Pickin' in the Park.
Rob, would you like to address the board about this, please?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. It's just funny not to see myself, I guess. I just want to start by saying thank you so much for your 2020 COVID grant for Pickin' Productions. It helps a lot. We took a hit last year, keep just being in the music business, and we just really appreciate the support. I'm really here tonight also to just let you know simply that we are optimistically moving forward with Pickin' in the Park in August. I acknowledge that we don't know what the conditions will be in August, but I just wanted to let you all know that we're setting up, we're booking bands and feeling really good. Every day, variance aside, things feel better and better. So I spoke with Craig from the health department for a while, and I just wanted him to know who I was, and we opened dialogue. So we're going to talk every few weeks just to check in to see how things are going. Yeah, I'm excited. Hopefully we'll have a fun August with Pickin' in the Park. But I wanted to put myself out there in case you guys had any questions for me about that.
All right, questions for Rob from the board.
All right.
I don't see any. Thank you so much, Rob, for coming and giving us an update. We all look forward to hopefully having that event go forward this year.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just so you know, I will be back in be it a month, maybe a couple of months or something like that. And I'll just do the same thing. I'll just let you know where I'm at, because I think it's important that we're all aware of, the future.
Thank you so much. That would be greatly appreciated. All right, thank you. All right, next item of agenda is Western Slope Conservation Center letter of support. There he is. Hi, Ben.
Hi. I like to think of us as a conversation center. But, hi, everyone. Ben Katz, Public Lands Program Director for the Western Slope Conservation Center. I'm here today to ask the town, whether that be the mayor or town council or all of the above, in signing onto this letter supporting some conservation priorities in the state budget. So a little bit of background: every year, the state of Colorado goes through a process identifying different priorities in the state where to prioritize money, where to put money towards. It's called the long bill. So you might hear that in articles as well. The Conservation Center has been working in a coalition with a series of other organizations across the state, trying to get certain conservation and environmental priorities included in the long bill so that they get funding. And that's why some of these pieces may not be directly relevant to Paonia, although some are, but that's why they're all included there. So yeah, I can, within the packet, I wrote a little letter to the town council members, and then I also included the letter that I wish, that I hope the town will sign on to. And we've really identified 6 priorities for the long bill. 2 are kind of state parks priorities. One is the state parks operations, and another is Fisher's Peak State Park operations down in Trinidad. 2 more are kind of wildlife corridor enhancements, and then the last 2 are these wildfire and forest health investments. And again, you see this number attached to them. That is all still, it's fairly certain. It's still being decided by the Joint Budget Committee right now. They're meeting and doing figure setting. So it's still being decided a little bit exactly how much money goes where, but these are fairly certain. So the ones that I think are most relevant to the town are kind of the last 2. this wildlife corridor coordination and then the wildlife corridor enhancements. Money there, you'll see the $100,000 is actually for someone to be a wildlife corridor coordinator. If I can, it's a little bit of a tongue twister there. Working with the Department of Natural Resources, and then the other is just for money to go towards kind of wildlife corridor enhancements throughout the state, which we have several wildlife corridors in and around Paonia and the GMUG National Forest and all of our BLM lands. And then the other piece is this wildlife and forest health investments. And that's part of that is going to a grant program that will disperse money to local towns and counties that have certain defensible space and other building use land or building codes and land use regulations. And then another piece of that also goes to the Colorado Water Conservation Board, which you may be familiar with, but does a lot of the water improvements in and around, or some of that money goes to the ditch improvements in and around town, and again elsewhere throughout the state. And yeah, so my request is just that the town kind of sign on to this letter. Again, I've been kind of dispatched, and we have other groups going to other towns and counties throughout the state. I've asked Delta County and Gunnison County, as well as Hotchkiss and Crawford. So you guys are kind of on my list, but happy to answer any questions. I guess the last thing I'll say is that we're kind of eyeing a March 15th deadline. The process moves fairly quickly, and we're thinking that the long bill is going to start moving through the state house and the state senate like end of March, early April. So that's kind of the day where we're eyeing to get kind of all of our signers on. But again, I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah, Michelle.
Yeah, just a question for clarification. The amounts connected to each of those budget items, those are the amounts that are already part of this process and that were put forth by at the state level and not specifically by Western Slope Conservation Center. Is that accurate?
Yeah. They're all put together by the state level. Unfortunately, Western Slope Conservation Center doesn't have $130 million to put towards wildlife corridor enhancements. But
no, I don't mean that this is your money. I mean, these amounts are not the amounts that you're proposing the state spend, and rather these are the amounts that the state, that someone who has put forth the supplemental requests at the state level did the research and attached those amounts. That's not being generated locally.
Right, correct. Okay. So they're experts within the Joint Budget Committee, and then they ask each of their departments to create these amounts. And there is a detailed kind of a detailed document I can send. I didn't include it in the packet because it is 500 pages long, but it does exist if you want to see like exactly where or how that all of this money will be spent. So yeah, I can send that along if that's helpful.
I don't know that I'll read 500 pages, but if you've got a link, I'd be happy to just probably skim through it.
Sure.
Apologies for the interruption, but Mayor Bachran has unfortunately lost connection for a moment and has asked Mayor Pro Tem Bear to run the meeting in her stead while she tries to get back in.
Well, that's a heavy responsibility. Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Vic, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a very worthwhile letter for the town and the state. I think the town should sign on to this.
Is that a motion?
Is that other comments or somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that, yeah, the town signs on to the WSCC letter that is attached in the packet.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any more discussion from the board members? Tammy?
Only to echo requests for support. This is important stuff, and it may not be happening right here in the town, but it affects us all. And I have no doubt that Western Slope Conservation Center has put a lot of work into this, so definitely recommend support of this.
Thank you, Tammy. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I just also support this. I'm really concerned about Highway 133 between Hotchkiss and Paonia for a wildlife corridor. We just see a lot of slaughtering of animals along there, and I would hope this would be raised up or be part of the bill. Thanks, Ben, for your work. We really appreciate it.
Sure, Dave. And just to that point, there was the governor signed an executive order back in, I think it was 2019, asking CDOT and DNR to work together on these wildlife corridors, and they actually identified 133 as kind of a highway of importance. So that does elevate it. Again, all of the specific projects haven't been identified as far as like exactly where this money goes. They do all the feasibility and stuff, but it is on their list as like a corridor that they're watching. So.
Thank you, Ben. Is there any comments from the public? Corinne, you're going to have to watch that. I can't see him.
Okay, Suzanne Watson has her hand up.
Okay, Suzanne.
Hi, this is Suzanne Watson. And I was wondering, when the town signs on to something like this, is it merely because we're like the community that's near the highway, or is there anything that's specific to the communities themselves and wildlife issues that we might have? You know, I've seen deer deaths on 2nd Street where I live, and there's a huge problem with animals in the roadway. And it seems like the town does nothing. And I was just wondering, are there any resources in this for municipalities, or is it just geared at highway and wildland corridors? I mean, signage, whatever, informational things, maybe speed limit suggestions, things like that. I'm just kind of wondering how might this benefit municipalities within the municipality, or is it generally something that we just are supporting for the lands around us? Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Ben, would you like to answer that? If you can, I don't view that bill as, or anything in this letter as supportive of any particular town, but more as a general plea for the state government to provide funds to these different projects. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we'll say what this will do is it will move money into different grant programs, and then the town can apply for those grants to do specific projects like you're suggesting. So that's kind of how this money kind of works and will get distributed. And I also will say that the Conservation Center is we have a fence removal project that we're doing in partnership with Colorado Parks and Wildlife and Backcountry Hunters and Anglers on March 26th, is a Friday, to actually remove some large elk fencing, and will hopefully provide more migration corridors for our elk and mule deer populations so that they can kind of move in and out of kind of people's property and down to the river and back a little more freely, so that we don't have these pinch points. It seems to happen throughout town. So the Conservation Center is working on specific projects that kind of address that issue that you brought up. But again, this specific sign-on more just supports larger projects, kind of statewide. And again, there could be in the future specific places where the town or Delta County kind of applies and receives that money to do work like that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you, Ben. And I see that Mary's back on. So Mary, to catch you up, we have a motion and a second to sign on to the letter.
Okay.
We've had comments from the council, comments from the public. So now it's back in your lap.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Bill, for taking over. My internet kicked out, and so I had to restart. So, motion, yes, Corinne.
Ben, could you tell us where the location is of that project that you're working on for the fence removal?
Sure. It's about 1.5 miles. I can send you the link. Maybe should I just put it in the chat?
That would be great.
Let me see. Yeah, it's about 1.5 miles up the road. It's actually a Valley Resources property. It's about a 2.5 acre parcel. I think it's going to be about 500 feet of fence removal. And we're going to use this kind of as a pilot project. And we're hoping to do at least 2 more in addition to this one before it gets too hot in the summer. So depending on how it goes and how many people seem interested, we'll do some more. But it is going to be probably harder labor, but again, all are welcome to attend. So let me put it in the chat here.
All right. So are we ready for a vote, or is there more comment and questions? I guess we're ready for a vote. So all in favor of signing on to this letter?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thank you, Ben. I wish I could have been here for the rest of it.
No worries.
It
Thanks.
is recorded.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks all.
Thank you so much. All right, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, marijuana ordinance regulations, a work session schedule. So I guess the idea here is to present the amended ordinance for public discussion, and let's do it in a work session. Let's make sure it's what we want to do it before we bring it back to the board. Is that correct, Corinne?
That is correct.
Okay. Do we want to set a work session, guys? And if so, when?
So our suggestion for the work session is next Tuesday, the 16th at 5 p.m. If that works for the board.
Will this be an in-person or a Zoom session?
Good question.
That would be a board decision.
Yeah. Yeah, Michelle.
I'm not going to be available that day.
Okay. Dave.
This might be a good chance to experiment with in-person meetings again, because it's not so formal and it's
Sure.
more of a work session, and we can see how it goes.
Okay.
I would echo Dave's opinion. I think that it's time to get back into the regular business.
Okay. All right. So if we make it, is everybody except Michelle available on Tuesday, the 16th at 5?
Yes.
All right. So let's go ahead and schedule it at that time, and it'll be an in-person meeting. Yes, Dave.
Do we have to do that Tuesday? Could we make it Wednesday or sometime when Michelle's available, so we have all of us?
Would you be available, Michelle?
I would prefer to attend if there's a way to do that, but I'm not available for an in-person meeting between the 16th and the 24th.
Okay.
So I could do it the 15th, or it would have to be it would, I suppose, have to be the 15th if we wanted to do it before the next meeting or sometime this week. So
Would you
otherwise,
guys- Okay.
if it's a day other than Tuesday, I can join in on YouTube, but on Tuesday I'm traveling.
Okay. Do you guys want to do it on Monday?
I'm not available
15th?
Monday evening.
Oh, okay.
I have a meeting. I don't have to be at the work session, but I do want to make that known that I would not be able to be in attendance.
Yes, Dave.
How about Wednesday, the 17th, then, and Michelle could at least attend remotely?
That would work for me.
Put out to the committee.
Again, but again, yes, go Bo.
That doesn't work for me if you'd like my attendance.
Oh,
Me neither. There's a lot of meetings.
yeah. Why don't we just go ahead? Let's go ahead and do it. If you could get the amended version to Michelle. Michelle, if you could make comments on it, then at least we could incorporate your comments into the whole thing. How does that sound?
Yep, that works for me.
Okay, so then let's go ahead and set it for Tuesday, the 16th. Yeah, Tuesday, the 16th at 5 o'clock in person. Okay. Yes, Michelle.
Sorry, just one more question. For the process, will that become the first reading at the work session and then the
No.
final reading?
No,
will be
it
the
has
following-
to be at the board. It has to
Okay,
go to the
so-
board.
So then the first reading will be at the meeting on the 23rd.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Now that we have that settled, let's move on to resolution 2021-03, amending the 2020 budget. Cindy, I think this one's yours.
Sorry about that.
It seems like it, okay, it's,
I'm here.
there she is. Okay. So why don't we start with, if there are any questions on this for Cindy from the board?
I would just ask for a synopsis of what the various changes are, not really drilling down too deeply into it.
Okay. Can you give us a brief overview, Cindy?
So the first one is regarding the general fund, and that is just appropriating the grant funds that we received from COVID and CDOT, and then spending those funds, which these are reimbursable grants. So you approved the expenditures at the time that they were presented. This is just a formal housekeeping item. I have found the statute says we have to do it one way. The practice has been that communities do it two different ways. We are converting over to the way that state statute says we have to do it. But in the meantime, this is the housekeeping that we need to do for the 2020 budget. And like I said, this 2021-03 resolution is for the general fund for the grant funds we received that were COVID related through CDOT and the COVID funds.
Yeah. All right, any other questions for Cindy? All right, Bill.
Yes, just so to get it right in my mind, it wasn't really a budgeting problem. It was the fact that we had additional funds from those two grants that we had to reconcile.
That's correct. We got funds, we got grant funds from CDOT and from DOLA for those two. We spent it. Technically, you approve that when you approve the expenditures. This is just a this is a court requirement in the statute that we formally approve those receiving those funds and expending those funds. So this is just the mechanism for the formality of that revenue and expenditures.
And I would remind the board, we do this every year before we do the audit, so that we get everything reconciled and in its correct place. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, I appreciate the explanation, and it sounds like you confirmed that we are technically out of compliance with state statute and the way they describe this process, even though it's the way that we're doing it is common practice. It sounds like the fact that we are out of compliance with the state statute, should we anticipate any ramifications for that from the state or during the audit?
Potentially there'll be a note in the audit, but there is no ramifications at this time from the state. And we have recognized the non-compliance, and we are changing it so that even if it is mentioned in the audit, we will have a response. In practice, many communities do it this way. And thank you for bringing it to my attention, because that is not what state statute says. And so I was going from what I was taught, best practice. And so I am going to switch my practice from best practice to state statute practice.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, anything from the public? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we approve resolution number 2021-03.
And the second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Yes, Corinne.
Apologies, Paige does have her hand up.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Paige.
Hi, this is Paige, and I just wanted to point out a typo. The paragraph under the last whereas, the second line says revenues received from of. I don't know if it's too many words or not enough words.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Paige. All right, so we have a motion. Did we get a second? Yes, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, let's move on to resolution 2021-04. Anything you would like to add on that one, Cindy?
Okay, so this one is for the extra that we received in the capital improvement fund, which is the addition of the increase in sales tax that we received. And then there was a $500 donation that was for a particular project. And this is one acknowledging the reserves that was determined in the audit, the increase in the sales tax, and then the spending of those revenues.
All right, any questions for Cindy on this one? Okay, seeing none, anything from the public? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to, Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve resolution 2021-04.
And a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. All
Madam
right,
Mayor, this is the treasurer speaking.
yes,
I just would like to remind the board that after this resolutions have been adopted, that you will have a reconciliation resolution that would then ultimately be submitted to the state, showing the balanced budget, and it reflects these modifications to the budget and the expenditures. That concludes my comments.
Thank you very much, Ross. That was much appreciated. All right, let's move on to Ordinance 2021 to be determined accessory dwelling unit regulation review and referral to Planning Commission. Corinne.
I'm happy to start the discussion. Included in the packet is the draft ordinance for the accessory dwelling unit conversation that's been headed up by the Governmental Affairs and Public Safety GAPS Committee. It is my understanding that the intent by having it in the packet for the board was just to have the board do a cursory overview, confirm that all of the direction given to the GAPS committee is included, and formally refer the ordinance to the Planning Commission for review and recommendation to the board.
Okay, so as far as the board, do you guys see anything that was missing that? Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, I've just got a couple of comments. There were some changes from GAP's recommendations as compared to the final ordinance. And I was wondering if we could talk through why those changes were made, or just talk about it for a minute. So one was that GAPS had recommended a 500 square foot minimum size, and then a possible increase based on the primary dwelling size. The ordinance reads 800 square feet. And then the second big difference was that GAPS recommended no parking restrictions or requirements, and one off-street parking space is included in the ordinance as a requirement.
Okay. So
my assumption is they're carry forward from the original draft that had that information. And again, if that's the consensus that would be recommended to go before the Planning Commission, those modifications can be made and then provided in the Planning Commission packet.
Okay, yeah. Bill.
I think that the Planning Commission should consider parking. Some of the streets are very crowded. Some of the people complain about not having enough room to park. So I think the Planning Commission should discuss parking. Whether or not they come back to the board with another recommendation, who's to say, but at least that topic should be considered. I don't have any other comment on the size of the dwelling.
Okay, thank you. Dave.
One of the things we're trying to do with this ordinance is to try and help alleviate the problems with not enough rentals in town. A lot of ADUs can help that. Something that's 500 square feet is too tiny to be helping with the rental situation. And that's why I like the 800 square feet. I also like the idea of off-street parking, as Bill has mentioned. One of the things I am concerned about is the perception in the community that we're trying to do an end run on the water moratorium by approving a bunch of ADUs. What I'd suggest we put in the ordinance is that this is restricted to 10 units during the first year as a pilot program to be reevaluated by the board at the end of that year. Thank you.
Thank you. My only suggestion is if the water moratorium is lifted with our JDS hydro report, then that is no longer an issue.
And we would act accordingly.
Okay. Yeah, Michelle.
Yeah, my understanding from our GAPS discussions on this was that, and Bo can correct me if I'm misunderstanding this, the ADUs would not be allowed because of the water moratorium at all, unless they can be served by an already existing water line. So that is if the property already has a water line that's running to the garage and the property owner wanted to convert that garage to an ADU, that would be allowable under the moratorium because it already has the water line. In any other case, if a water line would have to be extended, the ADU would not be allowed until the moratorium is lifted.
That's correct. And under the effective date of the proposed ordinance, it states that there's a moratorium where it won't take effect until the moratorium is released. So,
thank you. Okay, anything else from the board? Okay, seeing none, anything from the public? Yes, Paige. There you go, Paige.
Hello. Sorry. Hello, this is Paige again. I just had a question about page 55 of your packet, and that at the top of that page, you have a cross-reference to section 16, and it's not filled in. And then on that same page under section 3AB, there's the same unfinished cross-reference to 16. And my question, actually I have two questions, but this first one is that going to be determined by the Planning Commission, or is that something that needs to be filled in now before it goes to the Planning Commission? And then my second question has to do with what you were speaking about with regard to the TAP moratorium. And I'm wondering if the last section that in this ordinance that refers to the moratorium contradicts what is on page 55, which says the accessory dwelling unit may be served off of the water or sewer tap for the principal residence, in which case it shall not be subject to additional tap fees. It seems like what you have said at the bottom of this ordinance does not recognize the language in H, which is a way to continue without having to get a tap. So those are my two questions for however you want to deal with them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paige. All right. The first question is about the missing sections.
It needs filled in. So it does need a fill-in reference. I believe is, here comes Bo to that first part.
Yeah, that's correct. I think we'd be looking at, it just would be within that 16.365. Again, it would depend somewhat on where the Planning Commission wants to go, but I anticipate it's a great point in terms of we got to have that reference or that cross reference in there. It's just not kind of clear yet, but I think it would be 16.165.
So before it goes to the Planning Commission, can that be either filled in or a couple of options given to the Planning Commission so they know what they have to choose from?
That's fine.
Okay. And then the second question about the water line?
I guess I take a little bit, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'm really trying to not provide legal advice in an open meeting, but there's as everybody knows, there's a limitation with respect to the water moratorium, and it could be argued that potentially the extension of an existing line is outside the scope of what's allowable or permissible under the moratorium. And so, again, I think it's a good point, and we need to make sure and cross-reference with respect to the moratorium language. But the last thing I want to do is create a situation where either there's an expectation that somebody can move forward with the moratorium in place, or we allow for set somebody up for failure with respect to creating a situation that is in violation of the moratorium. So.
Yes, Corinne.
And what I would add to that is the conversations that I know we've had them briefly in the meetings, but conversations also that I've had with the town attorney on the differences. So setting aside the moratorium for the moment and just talking about taps, typically based on the town's existing water ordinance, a new tap purchase is not required for an extension of a water line to a secondary dwelling that sits on one parcel, one lot. So that is the answer to the part about that another tap isn't required for a secondary structure that has water. But and so while a tap isn't required and taps are prohibited under the moratorium, when we take the moratorium piece back in, there's the conversation about the intent of what that moratorium's purpose was. And that is to restrict and reduce any additional homes or businesses coming online that would be drawing additional water while we are in the process of reviewing our capabilities to provide those that already have the right to the water. So that is why the two seem to contradict themselves on a blanket level, but when you actually review what each one means on its own, that's how they tie in together.
Thank you, Corinne. All right. Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, just one more question. The GAP's recommendations on this did include a little more nuance on, for example, the parking situation and some other components. Would it be appropriate to include the actual document of the GAP's recommendations to the planning committee along with the draft ordinance, or is that something that we should just talk about as a board when it comes back in front of us?
I think it's totally fair to share that memo or those notes from the GAPS committee, that it gets incorporated so that the Planning Commission can be aware, and certainly if they wish to incorporate those suggestions, they can do that. So.
Okay, anything else from the board? Okay, seeing none. Thomas, Markle?
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Two things. First, the water moratorium specifically calls out extension of water delivery pipes as part of the definition. So it would likely be restricted by the moratorium. And second, I have to respectfully disagree with Dave's assertion that 500 square foot living space is unsuitable, or I forget exactly how he phrased it, but having lived in a 120 square foot motorhome for 4 years continuously, I can certainly say, and also having lived in small apartments as well, 500, 600 square feet, the opportunity to have your own space and not like an 800 square foot apartment is great if you have a roommate, you know, but to be able to have your own space, even if it's smaller, makes personal and often financial sense. Just as a thought. Thanks.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay, anything else from the public? Okay, yes, Suzanne.
Hi, this is Suzanne Watson. So I suppose I guess I want to know, I'd like an explanation of what other the process that things are going to go through with the Planning Commission, and at what points there'll be public comment that will be allowed, and then also the hearing phase when it goes back to the board. And it is a hearing, I believe, where is it quasi-judicial at that point? So you have to be neutral and really consider both sides of the issue when you're hearing from the public on this. And so maybe just to have that reiterated. And then I suppose if people aren't ready to comment tonight on this, it's still up to like change. It can be changed, correct? I mean, it's not like you're rubber stamping it so they can rubber stamp it so you can rubber stamp it. I'd imagine. I'm hoping that it'll be up for discussion. As far as the extension of the water lines and turning garages into the living units, and I'm not saying I'm for or against, I'm not taking a stand at this point, but you are kind of extending a water line because you're creating a living situation in a building that it was illegal to live in before. So it is an extension of a water line, to speak. I mean, you're putting it into a residential use where before it was not allowed to be residential. So I'm kind of wondering what the intent there is. Does it mean the physical extension of the water line, or the use, the extension by use of a water line? And I suppose these are things that I'm asking you tonight, but technically this is something the Planning Commission could consider, because this is kind of their job. I would also hope that the Planning Commission would be presented with the ordinance in Chapter 16 about accessory building structures and uses, along with the definition, so they're really prepared. I'm not always sure from what I've heard from them that they know what they're looking at. So hopefully they'll get a little bit of direction and instruction before they contemplate any of this. So if you could answer my question about what the process is, that's what I'm most concerned about right now. Okay. And when public gets to comment, and perhaps Bo Nerlin could answer that for us. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Suzanne. Bo.
Yeah, so certainly the public can provide comment tonight because it is in the agenda and it is open for public comment. That would be included in the minutes for this evening. It would be appropriate to provide those minutes to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will put this on the agenda. They'll take public comment on it, and then they'll make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, which will take it under advisement. And thereafter, it would be introduced as a that's exactly right. It would be introduced as a public hearing and then adopted subsequent to that.
Until public comment would be taken at the hearing as well,
Yeah,
correct?
I would say there's frankly 3 opportunities. There's this evening, there's before the Planning Commission, and then when it goes back to the board.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So do we need a motion to move this forward?
No,
Or it's just going.
It has to go anyways, but we just, again, we want to get some feedback and check in because it did start with gaps and see where the trustees were and the public.
Okay. All right. Are there, yes, Michelle.
All right, I just want to add one more comment to make it very clear that gaps in working on this, we were in no way trying to do a run around the water moratorium. We were preparing this with the idea that at some point the moratorium will be lifted, and at that point, this will be a great way to provide more housing opportunities in town. But absolutely, we want to respect the moratorium and everything required related to that. And I think there was a good point that a garage, even if it has a water line, you could argue that that might still be an extension of a line since it's a change in use. And I would defer to legal opinion on that, but we want to respect the moratorium and follow all the rules related to that.
Yeah, and I would echo that too. I mean, I don't think that this in any way has any language that suggests that it is an end around. And like I said, the effective date is dependent on the moratorium. And we've taken a narrow approach at the staff level with respect to any extension of a line.
Okay, thank you. So any other comments before we pass this on to, yes, Karen?
I just want to say that converting a garage, you really have to take into consideration the parking thing because you're reducing the parking instead of adding additional. So, that may or may not be something the Planning Commission wants to look at.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, then this will go to the Planning Commission. Do we have a date for that, Corinne?
I'll check the calendar. We have an upcoming Planning Commission, but I believe that agenda may be pretty heavy. But I will get it scheduled and get that out to the board and public as soon as it's scheduled.
Okay, thank you, Corinne. All right, let's move on to item number 10, decommissioned 500,000 gallon water storage tank. I believe it's being taken off. We're not going to decommission it at the moment.
Yes, so we included it in the packet because it was tabled to a future meeting. So in order to be really clear and transparent with the process, that's why it's on the agenda again. I did include in the packet just so that the board had it again, the bids that were received and some images so that you could see what the water tank looks like. Some of our initial conversation that we were having with finalizing, those just incomplete projects that are kind of just hanging out there, that deferred maintenance, which really is what this project is a deferred maintenance project. It's completely offline. It's been, the offline status is approved through some of the items we had to complete through the sanitary survey, that it's disconnected, so there's no threat to the water system. I had some initial concerns with leaving the structure as is because of its open nature, which you can see that this is an in-ground tank if you're looking at the images. I had some concern with access, and if someone was to obtain access to the tank and was to get in it, they wouldn't be able to get out, especially children. But the Public Works Director has taken a good look at the fencing around the location and made sure that all the locks are secure so there's no easy access to the property. And Public Works is also in the process of removing all of the tin and things that are attached to the top of the structure, because we have had some issue with high winds, some of that tin coming loose and blowing. And when it gets airborne, it really travels, and we don't want to risk anyone being injured. So at this time, we are requesting the board just remove this, that we just pass on this item, make no decision. We will circle back to it at a future date when our reserve numbers are secured through the audit and we have the capability to either budget specifically for this project or look at other grant funding mechanisms that we may be able to use for its removal.
Okay, so we don't need to vote on this.
No.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Then let's move on to the Advisory Water Committee establishing priorities. Oh, I'm sorry, Paige, I missed you.
I think I'm unmuted.
Yes.
Thank you. I just have a suggestion, and it is most often when the packet includes the bids from companies, we actually see the bid itself. And I would like to suggest that in the full faith of and transparency, that you give us the 3 actual bids that came in from the 3 construction firms that are actually signed and dated, rather than the handwritten ones here, if that's possible.
Those are the
Thank you.
actual forms that were supplied for this one.
Do they have a signed cover page and a date stamp when they came in, so that it, it has some official capacity associated with it?
The envelopes or date stamped signature pages weren't requested on this proposal.
Oh, okay. I would just suggest that maybe that date stamp be included, or, because anybody could make this up, is what my point. I think some evidence that it came in from the companies that are submitting the bids would be very good for transparency. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paige. All right, now let's move on to the Advisory Water Committee, establishing priorities. I see that Thomas is here. Are there any other members of the Water Committee here? I see none. Okay, so Tammy.
So Philip and Mike Drake are not online, is that correct?
All I see is Thomas. I don't see Mike or I don't see Philip.
Okay, they were supposed to be here. So I'm wondering if maybe they're the 2 people who are just in waiting. 2 phone call in
people in waiting?
I don't. Everyone's been accepted that is in the attendee list.
All right.
So I don't see Mike or Philip, but Thomas, of course, Travis and Tammy are.
Yeah.
And so we should have sent out some sort of a reminder because they were expected to be here. So I'm very sorry about that.
Okay. Well, Tammy, would you like to introduce this?
Sure. We just, with consideration for Ordinance 2020-09, which is the ordinance that created this committee, following an initial meeting and then just a real in-depth discussion meeting on how to prioritize what we'd like to see done or what we'd like to be able to work on. We have provided that list of 10 top priorities. I had planned to have Mike and Philip available for answering questions, but I'm sure Thomas and I can handle it.
Okay.
So I would just ask that the board send any questions our way, any comments. Obviously, this is a very brief description of each priority, but perhaps we can answer your questions.
So Tammy, are you looking for the board to set a priority or 2 at the very top that they should work on first?
Well, I really don't want to talk for the guys that much, but yeah, we're just looking for, possible approval. We're just looking for some guidance to make sure that we are on the same page as the board as far as what you want to see this committee do. Yeah, I don't really know how else to put that.
Okay.
As I said, there were supposed to be 2 other people here who were going to help with this discussion, but.
Okay. And Thomas just disappeared from the attendees.
I promoted him to panelist.
Oh,
He should
very
be
good.
Coming in.
Okay.
Good. I was going to suggest that. Good. But
can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you. So I'm assuming you're on phone.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have video right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that this was determined at our last meeting, this list, and it's very important. It was a point made by, I think it was Mike brought it up first, that these are not in order of what happens first, so much as what requires the most attention, because the topics that we're going to be covering are so varied and interconnected, it will be literally impossible to finish one thing before we can begin work on another. So this is generally in order of how the group voted, as like order of importance, but not necessarily in order of a time, like what to do first.
Okay. All right. Questions? Yes, Tammy.
yeah, maybe wondering if Thomas would care to explain how we came to this list.
Oh,
the
there he is.
process. Yay. Because Thomas was instrumental in actually getting the list of priorities and putting out a survey for us all to fill out. And so
Sure.
yeah, I'm just wondering if you could touch on that.
Yeah, if you want. I don't want to kill too much time, but I've basically collected all of the topics that we discussed in our meeting and several emails that we passed back and forth, and broke them down into 22 different main topics of discussion that we might consider, and produced a survey where I've just asked the committee to rate the topics 0 through 4 as to what they thought was least or most worthy of our efforts. And these were the top 10 choices. I also produced a grid of what topics rely on other topics. So like say, we can't really have, let me pick one here, moratorium, review without the data collection for how much raw water, or raw water management say. And it kind of creates a nest there, but some things are definitely more influential than other things. And the most influential things, coincidentally, were the things that the group voted for. So it seems like a pretty solid, place to start from. And what we would like, or I guess, based on our discussion, was just to give you guys the opportunity to review this, add to it, edit it, share your thoughts or ask questions on it.
Okay. Thank you, Thomas. All right. Questions from the board for Thomas? Yes, Bill.
Well, I think that the list that they've developed is appropriate, and I would leave it to them to develop their number one priority, but I can understand that they're all interrelated. So I think your list looks solid.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Dave.
I'm really glad that there was a advocation for watching water operations. I think that's really important. The forthcoming studies, I mean, that's when the original water ordinance, when we have this committee formed in the first place. As a trustee, I really look to this committee to do a deep dive into these new studies that we're paying for and really pick it apart for us and make sense so that we're not having to get into the details on this, but also that we have competent people really taking a look at it and giving us good guidance. So for me, that's really, really important how they're picking apart the new stuff that's coming their way. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Michelle.
Yeah, I had just a question on the USDA grant and some clarification on whether the committee would lead the grant application process or whether that's something that the committee is requesting the board or staff to take on.
Yeah, Corinne sent out some information on that. Corinne, can you just touch on that? It sounds like there's not a lot of options for us.
There's some question about our eligibility through the USDA grants, but my suggestion would be that if there were grant opportunities that the committee reviewed and were interested, that they be that the information be given to the town so we could see, because it's multi-layered. I mean, we can look at these grants and see if we apply, if we qualify for the grants and then potentially apply for them. But then we have to also look at, of course, do we have the matching funds? Do we have the time to facilitate the grant process? Because there's a lot of reporting and things like that, of course, that go along with an open grant process that we have to facilitate in-house. So my suggestion would be, of course, that if there were grants that any advisory committee or group were looking at, that they would want the town to look at, that those be presented so we could see if they were a good fit and if we had the matching fund requirements, or if it was something that would need to come before the board so that it could be something that we could potentially budget for in a future round, because they typically they're revolving grant cycles and application processes.
Yeah, and I would second that, because I was looking at the USDA site as well to see what was available, especially as far as raw water storage goes. And it depends on the state too as to what's available. And at this point in time on the USDA website, Colorado is not available for any infrastructure grants for raw water storage. And whether that will change next year or not, I don't know. But at this point in time, that's what their website was saying.
Apologies. I can add as well that there were, when I had spoken with USDA specifically about their grant opportunities for the town during our budget cycle in November, December last year, they did give another lead that would be a potential budget, a potential entity that may fit some of the needs that we had. When I was speaking with them, I was speaking primarily about raw water engineering and raw water storage. So I'd be happy to share that grant entity information with the committee.
Any other comments from the board? Yes, Dave.
Just one last thing. I'm assuming demand management also encompasses conservation. Is that correct?
Yes, almost entirely demand management. Actually, there was a really good presentation from a couple of groups this past week, got together and did a Zoom meeting. But essentially, any techniques that or processes that we can put forth to reduce the demand on the system. It's kind of the consumer side rather than the supply side.
Thank you.
Okay, and Thomas, you had your hand up to say something else?
Yeah, I just wondered if we had a delivery date for the current engineering studies, when we might be able to expect those.
Right now, they're still on task for their preliminary draft timeline for the 3rd week of March.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and my take on this is like the first two are absolutely, at least in my book, my top requirements. Those are the things I want to see addressed. I really want to look at the tap moratorium in light of the studies, and I'm sure they're going to come back and say we need raw water storage. So looking at that and seeing if there's any way we can fund getting some of that done. But thank you for doing the work and for pulling together this. You know, some of the stuff down at the bottom is going to take a while to get to. If we can get through even the first two in the next 6 or 8 months, I think that'd be really wonderful. So thank you for your efforts on this. Yes, Tammy.
Yeah, I will add that we are reaching out to other organizations and plan on doing so more in the future to help us with this. So it isn't just us. We do have some support, and we plan on using that support. It's been offered to us already. So Western Slope Conservation, I believe it was, has offered their support, and anything we can use from them, if they will help us with anything that they can help with. So there's a lot of people who are willing to step in and help. So.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's great to hear. Okay, anything else from the board? Okay, seeing none, anything from the public? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for bringing this back to us and letting us know where you're going, and more power to you. Thank you, Thomas, for showing up. Thank you, Tammy, for all your hard work, and same for Phil and I forgot his name. I'm sorry. Mike.
I'll pass
It was
that
an
on.
M, but I had the wrong one. All right. So let's move on then to the GAPS follow-up food truck regulations. Discussion / this direction. Michelle or Mick? You guys, this is your baby.
Okay, sure. So we've been talking about food trucks for a while. These are the final recommendations from the GAPS committee on some action. Basically, we need to put together an ordinance related to food trucks, if nothing else, just to have some clarification for people who run food trucks in town on what exactly the town wants to see from them and where and how they're allowed to operate. So these are the recommendations from GAPS on what we would want to see in an ordinance like that. And really what we're looking for is either confirmation from the board that this is the direction we want to go with it, or any changes that you might have before we get to the point of actually drafting an ordinance.
Okay, board input. Yes, Bill.
Just to reemphasize the fact that the food trucks got to stay off the town's right of ways. I think you've kind of mentioned that in here, but I'd like to emphasize that.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, you're correct. That is in there with the possible exception of special events. So that is something I'd like to hear from the board on what we want to allow during special events, whether that's still limited to the private property locations where they can operate otherwise, or whether we would open up, for example, the town parking lot as a place for food trucks to operate during events on Grand Avenue, or if we would allow them to operate directly on Grand Avenue, but a certain distance away from brick and mortar restaurants.
Yeah, Bill.
I think that discussion would come about in the planning for the special event. You know, I think that's a different story entirely. We'd have to entertain that as a board. I wouldn't have any objections to doing it on public property at that time, but I think that's a board decision at that time.
Yes, Corinne?
The issue is that currently not all special event applications that are held on or in the town right of way are required to go before the board. And so that was why in our discussion, we had included having that conversation at the board level, that what depth of regulation the board wants to put in place, of course, is open to the board. But one area that was a big part of our conversation and that we've heard from event holders, especially during this time with the pandemic, is wanting to have the ability to offer a space to the food truck when they're using the town right of way, specifically Grand Avenue, for any of those street closure block party events. And currently we don't permit them on in the commercial area at all during events. They're only permitted in the town parks. So that was why we were looking for some direction from the board on whether they were amenable to allowing the town to or to have a regulation drafted that allowed some type of use on the commercial town property, not the park sides.
Karen?
Is there any provision for a fee for, you know, they have a Colorado retail food license and a sales tax license, but does the town get anything? Is a permit or anything?
Yeah, that might, yes, Michelle.
Right now, no, but we don't do that for any other business in town, other than I believe home-based businesses have a fee related to their process that they go through, but we don't have, you know, we don't have a business license in town. So the GAPS committee did not recommend a fee specific to food trucks when we're not doing that for other businesses.
with the
Yes.
exception being special events, because special events pay for vendors to participate in their events.
Mhm. Yes, Bill.
Well, I take a little bit of exception to the comment that other people don't, other businesses pay property taxes into the town of Paonia. Therefore, they're paying all the time. So I don't think it's out of line to have a discussion concerning fees.
And that is true. I mean, anybody who's in a brick and mortar business, I mean, even if you're running a business out of your home, you do pay property taxes, and you do pay taxes to be in that location. So having a registration fee for food trucks could easily fit into that. Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, my personal take on that is that since what we normally do is allow food trucks to operate on private property, those private property owners where the food truck is operating are paying property taxes. And presumably that food truck may enter into some kind of rental agreement with the owner of the property, just like a restaurant owner, if they're renting the space, would from their property owner.
Thank you, Michelle. Good point. Yes, Dave.
I'm thinking about the number of restaurants we have lost since
Yes.
COVID. And I'm also thinking about trying to encourage food trucks to get real. And what I mean by getting real is have a brick and mortar establishment instead of just a food truck. I just want to make sure that we're onerous enough in these regulations that we are pushing in that direction toward restaurants. I'm curious what the 3 restaurants that survived the COVID thing, what they have to say about these regulations and what they might suggest. I don't know if we're including that input or trying to reach out to them. I'm assuming the GAPS committee has, but I'd like to hear what they had to say. Thank you.
Yeah, Michelle.
Yeah, so we did include a public session. It was the first Let's Talk session, was related to food trucks. That happened last year, and that really did inform our recommendations quite a bit. We had one restaurant owner in town who was unhappy with food trucks being allowed in town. Other than that single restaurant owner, most of the feedback we got, even from local restaurants, is that they welcome the food trucks. One restaurant owner specifically said that if their product is good, they're not worried about it at all. The competition is fine. So I believe, I don't remember what people said verbatim, but we do have minutes, and I believe we may have a recording from that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And our recommendations were built based on the input that we received. Not that we couldn't go back and, a lot has changed in the last year, so we could certainly encourage public participation as this moves through the process.
Yeah, I think the Fork is reopening, so it'd be, I don't know if Kelly's been part of this process or not.
Okay, Mick?
And I think there were some other stores that mentioned having the food truck there, they felt brought more business to them as well.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, other comments from the board? Okay, seeing none. Suzanne?
Hello?
Yep.
Hi, this is Suzanne. So I want to say I hear both Karen Buddinger's concern for the fee, and then I also hear what Michelle is saying. But there are actually 2 different issues you were talking about there. And one is food trucks on private property. And so, but the other, so I can see like not having the fee in that situation, but if you're going to use town property for your business, we absolutely as a town charge fees. If you want to rent the town hall for an event, if you want to rent the park, if you want to have all of these things, Polis Park, I don't know what the theater has been doing, but typically there's a rental fee for the use of town property for business. So if the food trucks were to use town property, I think you absolutely would have a right to charge a fee. The private property, not so much. Maybe you'll have a transaction fee like you do with the marijuana stores. I don't know, but limiting the number of food trucks that are allowed in town, just like you're doing marijuana stores, that might be something to look at. But that's for the future. But I think you're talking about two different things. There's food trucks on private property versus food trucks on town property. And if they are on the town property fee, you have an absolute right for that. And I hope you would do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. All right, anything else? All right, seeing none, thank you, Mick and Michelle, for bringing this on. I'm assuming next step will be some kind of ordinance proposed. Thank you, guys. All right, next thing on the agenda is the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Yes, Dave.
I'd like to move that we approve the consent agenda. And again, I want to compliment staff on getting us minutes in advance of the meeting. It is so helpful to read the previous meeting's minutes before we go into this meeting. So I want to thank Corinne and Amanda and whoever else helped with that. Thank you. And I move to approve the consent agenda.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Any other comments? Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, I agree with everything Dave said, and I just have one correction to a typo on page 79. Gaps met at 10 a.m., not at 10 p.m.
Oh, you guys, you're not staying up so late? Jeez. Yes, Mick.
I believe the amount for the skid steer is incorrectly listed. It was $9,817. It wasn't
I'll
it?
confirm that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mick.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, seeing none. Paige?
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Good. I'm sorry, never sure. I just have a comment to make on page 77, the fourth bullet. I believe that's it. Language needs to be clear, stating retail only, not production. I just would like to bring up that that was brought to your attention by myself and Suzanne Watson. And I would really appreciate it if these minutes accurately reflected that the public sort of brought to your attention that the ordinance was going in the wrong direction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paige. All right, anything else? All right, we have a oh, yes, Dave.
Well, the word sale on page 74.
Okay, anything else?
Can you be more specific where on page 74 so
Oh,
I can note it?
right above the motion by Trustee Bear about Public Works capital equipment acquisition.
Okay.
You know, we sailed through that agenda item, but we didn't sail through the price.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, next up is the mayor's report. I have included my report in there. The only thing I would like to bring up just one more time is that, yes, we will have an AARP grant being brought forward for the parks. And I will present hopefully a quasi budget on that for the next meeting so that you guys can take a look at it before we actually submit it. All right. And next, or any questions? Yes, Dave.
I happened to talk to one of the school bus drivers, and this is regarding the Little Blue Canyon CDOT on Highway 50. They're going to be rerouting the traffic on Highway 92. And the school bus driver said that the speed limits between Hotchkiss and Crawford go all the way up to 65. It's a pretty windy road. He mentioned the danger and the safety issues that he has as a school bus driver trying to negotiate that during the school year. And I wanted to make sure you as a mayor could bring forth that comment about the speed limits on 92 when they're starting to divert traffic that's not familiar with the area. in an
Okay.
area that has high speed limits and school children getting on and off school buses.
Okay, thank you. I can do that. I will forward that to the appropriate entity. But the other thing about that closure is that this is an opportunity for Paonia to snag some tourists. So if there's a way that we can do some outreach or something while people are driving between on that road, then this is the time to do it, this summer and the next summer. All right, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to finance and personnel.
We have a pretty heavy agenda tomorrow. We're going to be talking not only signing checks, and we welcome anyone to join us at 9:30. It's in person at Town Hall. But we're going to be talking about PTO. We're going to be talking about reserves, and we're talking about health insurance. So there's quite a bit on our agenda tomorrow, and the public's welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Government affairs and public safety.
Our next meeting is tomorrow at 10 a.m. And I have nothing else to report. Michelle, do you have anything?
Just that we have finalized our short-term rental survey, and it will open to the public on April 1st. The reason we're delaying it is to make sure it can go out on our next water bills. So everyone will see, we'll get some information on the survey, and it will also be posted on the town website, on Facebook, and I think we're going to do flyers as well. So hopefully we get a good response regarding short-term rentals, and we'll have data back for the board, likely the first meeting in May.
Thank you. And public works, utilities, facilities, Tammy and Bill.
Go ahead, Tammy.
I don't even have my notes in front of me. Most of what we talked about today in our meeting with Corinne and Travis were discussed in the meeting. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else, Bill, unless you can think of anything that was not touched upon.
Well, just to let people know, the school water meter still hasn't been installed. I understand that the water meter location will be under the asphalt at the school, and that the school district has asked us to wait until asphalt is available to repair the damage to the asphalt, so that has pushed that project out quite a ways. We also discussed the water meters. The town has started installing a few water meters, but they want to wait until later in the spring, perhaps May, before they try to finish up that project. Other than that, it's just a lot of the business that we've already discussed here tonight.
Thank you very much. All right, tree board, Tammy.
Okay, in light of the little event that took place last week, which I didn't really closely follow, and I'm not on social media, so I don't know what all really went down. Corinne could maybe speak more to that if anybody has any questions about that. But the tree board will be meeting Monday at 5. I don't know if that's via Zoom or in person, but we will be discussing the Arbor Day planting, which is, I believe, the 26th of April. I'm right around the 26th of April. We are looking for any ideas on where to plant a tree, and if we get a location, we would be able to choose an appropriate tree. So if anybody has any thoughts, we've kind of looked at Apple Valley Park, just as you drive into Apple Valley Park, just to the, I guess it'd be northeast. There's a couple of trees there, but some space for a lot more. So if anybody has any thoughts about where they'd like to see a tree or a couple of trees planted for Arbor Day, please contact us and let us know. We'll also be discussing an ordinance for tree planting. Wait, let me back up. So we'll be discussing a possible cost comparison for arborists versus non-arborists removing trees. We are also looking at how an ordinance could be shared with the tree service if we do come up with an ordinance for like the process for cutting down a tree. Frank can probably explain this a lot better. We don't have an actual ordinance for the process of cutting down a tree in public space. And that was what brought this all up, was a property owner chose to remove a tree. They were going to actually remove more trees. And a bunch of people got together and asked them to please stop. So we're looking at a possibly drafting an ordinance that would put in a process for that could be shared with property owners who want to remove a tree and also with tree services. And we're also going to be discussing Ordinance 7-5-20, which is authority and applicability having to do with trees and shrubs and public rights of way, and how this applies to the removal of trees and what happened last week. So that removal of that tree, a lot of people thought the town was doing it. The town was not doing it. It was a private company. And anyway, that's what led to all this discussion. It was kind of a hectic couple of days, I'm sure, for the town, with a lot of phone calls and a lot of comments. And so we'd just like to avoid that in the future. So that if anybody would like to attend that meeting, that is at 5 o'clock Monday. And Corinne could probably say if it's via Zoom or if we're going to do that in person. I don't think we've discussed that.
And I can't recall if Paula has answered that question yet. I did ask her which she preferred. I do believe she had stated in person, but I'll confirm that and get that updated on the town website. And I would just reiterate that we have really clear ordinances and in code about how you remove a tree, the appropriate safety requirements, and the process, what you have to do when you're doing it. But what we don't have when it comes to trees really is a process on how you apply. We have lists of trees that are permitted to be planted in town right-of-way based on the width of the right-of-way and based on the full growth size of the tree, but we don't have, but there's no process to that outlines how you go to the town and request to plant the tree. There's no application process or anything when you are having any kind of infrastructure concerns or anything with an older tree or tree planting to come to the town and say, hey, these are the problems I'm having on my private property. Can I remove the tree? Can I replace the tree? So I have in the lengthy conversations back and forth regarding the tree that was removed by the homeowner, it was requested that the tree board help participate in prepping and creating those policies and getting them out. And I have shared with some and that my intent is once the policy and process and guidelines are concise and clear, that we will provide that along with a copy of the specific municipal code that addresses trees, planting, pruning, removal, the whole process to all of the tree companies that are identified on the western slope. I'm going to do a mailer and send it to them and say, hey, this is the process when you're working in on town property or in the town right of way when it comes to trees and other items. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tammy. And anything more on the Water Advisory Board?
No, I can't think of anything. I don't know if Thomas is still on, but
no, I think he's
I'm
gone.
just gonna get to work. So
Okay.
okay. I
Karen.
will we have more to report next time.
Okay, thank you. Karen.
I just wanted to say that I think establishing the Water Advisory Board is one of the better things that the board has done this year.
It's been a short year. You mean last year?
Yeah, in the
Whatever.
since I've been on the board.
All right, we have reached the end of our agenda, and I move that I am adjourning this meeting. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you so much for taking part.
Thank
See
you.
ya next Tuesday.